Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. A Night to Remember. The grand hall of the Capulets' estate was alive with the sound of music and laughter. Servants weaved through the crowd, offering trays of sweetmeats and goblets of wine. The air was perfumed with the scent of roses, and the flicker of torchlight cast a warm glow over the revelers. Romeo, dressed in a mask and cloak, lingered near the edges of the room, his eyes scanning the crowd. Benvolio nudged him, a mischievous twinkle in his eye. "Come now, cousin, you must survey the beauties of Verona. Rosaline's face will soon be forgotten amid such splendor." Romeo sighed, his gaze distant. "I am here only to prove you wrong, Benvolio. There is no beauty that can sway my heart from Rosaline." Yet, as the words left his lips, his attention was captured by a vision in white. Juliet, her cheeks flushed with excitement, moved through the dance with a grace that left Romeo breathless. Their eyes met, and the world seemed to fall away. "Who is she?" Romeo whispered, his heart racing. Benvolio followed his gaze, a knowing smile on his lips. "The daughter of your house's foe, young Juliet Capulet." Romeo barely heard him. Drawn as if by a magnetic force, he approached Juliet, and with a gentle hand he drew her away from the dance. "If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine," he began, his voice low, "the gentle sin is this. My lips, two blushing pilgrims, ready stand to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss." Juliet's eyes sparkled with mirth and curiosity. "Good pilgrim, you do wrong your hand too much, which mannerly devotion shows in this. For saints have hands that pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy palmer's kiss." Their banter was cut short by the sudden arrival of Tybalt, a tall and lean figure with piercing eyes and a scowl etched on his face. "What Montague does trespass here?" This by his voice should be a Montague. "Fetch me my rapier, boy." Lord Capulet, ever the gracious host, intervened with a firm hand on Tybalt's shoulder. "Content thee, gentle cause. Let him alone. He bears him like a portly gentleman, and two. Say truth. Verona brags of him to be a virtuous and well-governed youth. Oh, is not. Indeed. With Tybalt's anger quelled, Romeo found himself alone with Juliet once more. Their conversation flowed easily, and before long, they shared a kiss that sealed their fates, a kiss that spoke of a love profound and true. As the partygoers began to disperse, Romeo and Juliet exchanged whispered promises to meet again in secret. With hearts racing, they parted ways, each returning to their respective families' domains. The night air was alive with the sweet scent of blooming flowers as Romeo made his way through the moonlit gardens. His footsteps quiet on the gravel path. The sound of rustling leaves and chirping crickets accompanied him, creating an atmosphere of mystery and romance. Juliet emerged from the shadows, her eyes shining like stars in the darkness. Romeo's heart skipped a beat as he beheld her beauty, his senses overwhelmed by the sight of her. They stood beneath the silvery glow of the moon, their fingers intertwined as they gazed into each other's eyes. "Ah, Juliet," Romeo confessed, his voice a whisper. "I never believed in love at first sight until tonight. You have bewitched me, heart and soul." Juliet's laughter was like music, her hand finding his in the shadows. "And you have charmed me, Romeo, but we are star-crossed, you and I, bound by our names to be enemies." "Then let us cast off these names," Romeo declared, his eyes alight with resolve. "For my heart recognizes you as its true match, and I would rather be nameless than live without your love." Their pledge of love was bold, a secret promise made under the stars. They spoke of dreams and desires, of a future where Montague and Capulet were names that bore no weight. And as dawn approached, they parted with a vow to find a way to be together, no matter the cost. The chapter closed with the first light of morning casting a golden hue over Verona, a city unaware that the fates of two young lovers had been irrevocably entwined. Romeo, with a heart full of hope, set out to seek Frier Lawrence's counsel, while Juliet watched him go, her thoughts a whirlwind of fear and joy. For both knew that the night they had shared would be one to remember for all time. Forbidden love. In the dim light of dawn, Romeo hurried through the empty streets of Verona. As he approached Frier Lawrence's cell, he was focused on the words he would say. "Good morrow, father," Romeo greeted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Romeo, the early morning sees you here so soon. What troubles bring you to my cell at this hour?" Frier Lawrence inquired, looking up from his herbs. "I have found the one who has captured my soul, and I wish to marry her. Her name is Juliet, and she is a Capulet," Romeo confessed. "A Capulet? Have you lost your mind, young Montague?" Frier Lawrence cautioned. "It is because of the danger that we must act, Friar. Our love could end this senseless feud. Please, will you help us?" Romeo implored. After a moment, Frier Lawrence agreed. "I will help you, but we must plan carefully." "Thank you, father. What do we need to do?" Romeo asked eagerly. "We need to arrange for Juliet to come to my cell. Then we can proceed with the marriage ceremony," the friar explained. "I'll make sure she comes," Romeo assured, leaving with a plan to convey the message to Juliet. Escalating conflict. The sun beat down on the streets of Verona, casting a harsh light on the simmering tension between the Montagues and Capulets. Benvolio, ever the peacemaker, urged Mercutio to retire from the public eye, wary of the Capulets' presence. But Mercutio, with a mischievous glint in his eye, laughed off the warning, jesting that he would not be cowed by the likes of Tybalt. As if summoned by the mention of his name, Tybalt, the fiery Capulet, approached with a band of his kinsmen. His gaze locked onto Romeo, who had just entered. Tybalt's words were like daggers as he called Romeo a villain. But Romeo, transformed by his secret love for Juliet, refused to be baited, responding with calm and uncharacteristic restraint. Mercutio, incensed by Romeo's submission, drew his sword. "Oh, calm, dishonorable, vile submission," he declared, mocking Romeo's pacifism. Dol accepted the challenge with a sneer, and the clash of steel rang out, echoing off the stone walls. The fight was a blur of motion, Mercutio's wit as sharp as his swordplay. But in a fateful moment, as Romeo sought to intervene, Tybalt's blade found its mark. Mercutio stumbled, a look of disbelief on his face as he fell to the ground, clutching his side. "A plague of both your houses," he cursed, his voice laced with pain and betrayal. The crowd gasped, the jovial atmosphere turning grave as Mercutio's wound proved mortal. Romeo faced Tybalt in a vengeful fury. "This day's black fate on more days doth depend. This but begins the woe others must end," he proclaimed. With the crowd's murmurs rising like a tempest, Romeo and Tybalt clashed once more. Steel sang against steel, their duel a dance of death under the sweltering Verona sun. In the end, Tybalt lay defeated, and Romeo fled. Desperate measures. Juliet's chamber became a prison of her own thoughts, each step a reminder of the life she was being forced into. Hope has fled. Cure is lost. Help is gone. She cried out, her voice echoing off the walls. The specter of death loomed over her, attempting escape from the chains of matrimony to Paris. Yet, in her heart, a single flame flickered. "Romeo, with one final kiss I'll brave the descent," she murmured, the thought of their eternal union beyond life's veil offering a sliver of solace. Her resolve hardened. She could not succumb to despair. With each step toward Frier Lawrence's abode, Her determination grew. The friar welcomed her, his concern evident. "My child, what burdens you so?" Juliet's sorrow poured forth like a tempest. "Friar, I am cornered. My love for Romeo is boundless, yet I am shackled to another. Guide me, for I am lost." The friar listened, his wisdom a beacon in her storm. "Take heart, dear Juliet. Trust in my counsel and we shall navigate this plight." His plan unfolded, a daring gambit. "You shall feign death, not a breath to betray your guise. Believed to be no more, you'll be laid to rest. Meanwhile, Romeo, informed by my message, will come to whisk you away, and together you'll rise anew." The gravity of the plan struck Juliet, a mix of fear and excitement. "I'll do it, Friar," she said, her voice steady though her heart raced at the thought of the risks involved. "I'll take the potion, and we'll outwit fate." Frier Lawrence's eyes locked onto hers, a fierce determination burning within them. "Then let us begin, for time is our enemy, and every moment counts." Misinformed tragedy. Overcome by a silent grief, Romeo stood in the shadows of the tomb. In his hand a vial, its purpose clear yet unspoken. He gazed upon Juliet, his resolve unwavering, and with a final silent tribute to their undying love, he joined her in eternal slumber. Their love, pure and fervent, now a testament to the ages, transcended the feud that had once kept them apart. In death, they lay united, their story a poignant echo of passion and tragedy. The tragic culmination of their love story would forever be etched in the minds of the people of Verona, a haunting reminder of the devastating consequences of a long-standing feud. Awakening horror. The cold stone of the Capulet tomb felt all too real against Juliet's skin as she stirred from her deep slumber. Her eyes, heavy with the remnants of the potion, fluttered open to the oppressive darkness that enveloped her. The air was thick with the scent of earth and decay, a stark reminder of the death that surrounded her. She reached out, her hands searching for something, someone, Romeo. "Romeo?" Her voice was but a whisper, a ghostly sound in the silence of the tomb. "Art thou here?" There was no answer, only the echo of her own voice bouncing off the ancient walls. Panic began to claw at her chest as she remembered Frier Lawrence's plan and the hope that it carried. She needed to find Romeo, to flee this place of death and start anew. But as her eyes adjusted to the dim light of the breaking dawn filtering through the cracks, a shape became clear beside her. It was Romeo, still and silent, an empty vial clutched in his hand. Juliet's heart plummeted into despair. She shook him, her calls growing more frantic, but he did not stir. The truth crashed upon her like a wave. Romeo was dead. "No, no, this cannot be," Juliet cried out, her voice echoing the torment that twisted inside her. "What cruel trick is this, that thou shouldst depart without me?" She recalled the feud, the secret marriage, the banishment, and the desperate plan that now lay in ruins around her. Juliet clutched at Romeo's cold hand, her sobs filling the tomb. "Oh, my love, my husband," she wept. "Death hath sucked the honey of thy breath, but hath had no power yet upon thy beauty." As the first rays of dawn crept into the tomb, Juliet made her decision. She would not live in a world without Romeo. She drew his dagger. "Here is thy sheath, there rest, and let me die." Ultimate sacrifice. In the quiet aftermath of the crypt, the Montague and Capulet families were left reeling from the tragic loss of Romeo and Juliet. The once feuding households were now united in grief, their bitter rivalry overshadowed by the profound sorrow of their children's untimely deaths. Lady Montague, Romeo's mother, was inconsolable. She had lost her only son, and the pain of his absence weighed heavily on her heart. She found solace in the company of Juliet's mother, Lady Capulet, who shared her anguish. Together they wept for their children, their tears a testament to the bond forged in shared heartbreak. Old Montague and old Capulet, once bitter enemies, now stood side by side, their enmity forgotten in the face of overwhelming sorrow. They shared a silent understanding, knowing that their families had paid the ultimate price for their long-standing feud. The weight of regret and remorse hung heavy in the air between them. In the days that followed, the families came together to lay Romeo and Juliet to rest. The funeral was a solemn affair, attended by those who had loved the star-crossed lovers. Frier Lawrence, his voice laden with grief, delivered a eulogy that spoke of the power of love to transcend even the deepest hatred. As the mourners gathered around the graveside, Balthazar, Romeo's loyal servant, stepped forward. His voice, steady yet laden with sorrow, recounted the final moments he had spent with his beloved master. He spoke of Romeo's unwavering devotion to Juliet, even in death, and how their love had been a beacon of hope in a world consumed by darkness. The tragedy of Romeo and Juliet served as a turning point for the Montagues and Capulets. In the wake of their children's deaths, the families found common ground in their shared grief. The feud that had divided them for so long seemed trivial in comparison to the profound loss they now endured together. In the months that followed, a tentative peace emerged between the two households. The once violent streets of Verona grew quiet, as the memory of Romeo and Juliet's sacrifice served as a constant reminder of the futility of their feud. The families worked together to heal the wounds of the past, their efforts a testament to the enduring power of love and forgiveness. And so in the end, Romeo and Juliet's tragic love story became a catalyst for change. Their deaths, though heartbreaking, brought an end to the bitter rivalry between the Montagues and Capulets, leaving behind a legacy of reconciliation and the hope that from the ashes of tragedy, a brighter future could arise. Requiem for Love. The city of Verona was forever changed by the tragic fate of the two young lovers, Romeo and Juliet. Their families, once sworn enemies, now stood united in their grief. Lord Montague, overcome with sorrow, vowed to honor his son's memory by erecting a golden statue in Juliet's likeness. "I promise you, dear Capulet, that I will raise a statue of pure gold in honor of Juliet," Montague said, his voice trembling with emotion. "No other figure shall be set at such a rate as that of true and faithful Juliet." Lord Capulet, equally distraught, nodded in agreement. As the news of the statue spread throughout Verona, the citizens gathered to pay their respects to the star-crossed lovers. The statue, crafted from the finest gold, stood tall in the heart of Verona, a poignant reminder of the senseless feud that had ravaged the city for so long. As the sun set over the golden monument, the people of Verona knew that they would never forget the ultimate price paid by Romeo and Juliet. From that day forward, the city of Verona flourished, its people living in harmony, free from the bitter rivalry that had once plagued them. The golden statue of Juliet stood as a beacon, reminding generations to come of the devastating cost of hate and the redemptive power of love.